This episode of Fermented Adventure the Podcast is sponsored by Brewskits, handcrafted dog treats made from spent beer grains, oats, barley, and rye. No chemical preservatives, a great source of fiber, and packed with protein. Visit brewskits.com to see the full selection of treats for your dog and your cat. Receive 15% off, no minimum purchase on your first order by typing in lowercase FA 2024 at checkout. Cheers! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, craft spirit enthusiasts, and those interested in the intoxicating world of craft distilleries, cideries, meaderies, wineries, and the occasional foray into breweries. It's Rich Shane, and welcome to Fermented Adventure, the podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people that are making the mash, fermenting, distilling, bottling, pouring, and delivering to you some of the finest libations in the world. Before we get started, here are a few housekeeping items. Thank you for bringing the podcast into wherever you are and whatever you're doing. We truly are grateful that you have chosen to listen and make us part of your day. It would mean the world to us if you left a 5-star review. This helps us climb in the rankings, and it makes it easier for others to find us. Don't hesitate to leave us your comments as well. If the podcast didn't meet your expectations, tell us why. We're always striving to improve. You can find us at fermentedadventure.com. We are on Instagram and Facebook as Fermented Adventure. Email us at fermentedadventure@gmail.com. All right, FA Nation, let's meet our guests. He's Chris Bauer. I'm Rich Shane. This is Fermented Adventure, the podcast. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Chris, not only do we get to have you today, we get to talk Eda Rhyne Distilling Company. This is a podcast in the making for at least over a year and a half. I can't wait to talk to you about Eda Rhyne Distilling and all that you do. How did Eda Rhyne get started?
You know, the funny story is that I had been looking into doing a distillery for a number of years, you know, working on different homemade projects. And one day, a mutual friend of mine and my business partner, Rett Murphy, who's a co-founder of Eda Rhyne, came to me and said, "Hey, Rett is... he's looking to do a distillery." Rett was a farmer for 15 years and wanted to stay in agriculture, but also wanted to kind of move out of, the daily grind of farming. So we got together. He told me his ideas about what he wanted to do with rye, making rye out of these rare grains. I thought it was brilliant, really close to where my heart was at. And at the end of the meeting, he said, "And then maybe we'll make something weird, like a Fernet." And I said, "Wait a minute, hold on. You've never tried my Fernet?" Because I'd been making Fernet at my house for years and years, and just sharing it with, my friends and family. And he said, "No, I've never had your Fernet." We immediately went to my house. He tasted some, and we just decided right there, we're going to make Eda Rhyne happen.
How did you find your way into the spirits world? How did you find your way into making Fernet and some of the other expressions that you were home producing?
You know, I started learning about medicinal plants and edible plants when I was a young child. My pappy we would go out into the woods, and he would just show me different plants as we were hiking and going fishing and stuff like that. And that was kind of like my journey. And my grandparents would make their own medicine, and as a kid you'd get sick and they'd give you this stuff. Oh, good, like, this is horrible, and then I got the opportunity to live in Europe for a couple of years as a young man, and started wondering, like, what is this Ramazzotti that's on every umbrella? What is this Campari? Like, back in those days, you didn't see a lot of Amaro behind the bar at all. It may be chartreuse or Campari, but there wasn't a lot available, especially in Asheville, which is a small town in the mountains. So I started tasting these amazing Amari, and I just loved them. And then started hearing about the stories. What is this made out of? Well, nobody knows. It's a secret. And oh, where did the secret come from? Oh, it's an alchemical recipe, or it's some doctor from up in the mountains. And kind of the more I looked into it, the more I realized that, oh my gosh, this is actually what we do in the mountains. We have a long-standing tradition of mountain medicine here in Western North Carolina. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're just adding sugar to it and celebrating it, as opposed to kind of like just keeping it secret. A lot of people know Western North Carolina and Appalachia for moonshine, right? Illicit whiskey making. What a lot of people don't know, though, is that usually one or two jars from each run would go to the community medicine maker. So to make medicine for the community for that year. So what that tradition just kind of came and found me. I don't really know. Once my grandparents passed away, I found some of their medicine, and there was just a door that opened up, and I kind of call it like ancestral roots. I kind of just give it to them because that's where it comes from for me.
All right. This is fascinating because there are so many directions that you've taken me today. You're in Asheville, North Carolina. And to what most people identify Asheville with, at least in the, beer world, it's breweries. It's the Mecca in many cases for people to go for breweries. But what you've done is you've provided, look, it's this pit stop in a way. Eda Rhyne Distilling is a pit stop and saying, all right, take a second and come visit our distillery and give your taste buds a chance to relax, enjoy. But then you provide this history of Appalachia. You provide the history of community medicinal spirits or medicinal remedies that you're really allowing the consumer a chance to identify with the history and, in a way, Americana. Do you see that, or do you see yourself as a caretaker of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, first and foremost, we cannot claim any kind of medicinal value of our spirits, but we do use plants that have traditionally been used in folk medicine over the years. And so yes, this Western North Carolina is one of the most biodiverse areas on the planet. There's more biodiversity in 2 square miles of Western North Carolina than there is in the entire continent of Europe. And we've been a hub for medicinal plants since before colonization. This has always been, a land of bounty and medicine.
Take us to the beginning or the next step after you meet and speak about the farming opportunity, the sharing of the Fernet. What's the next steps? What are the next steps for the distillery opening?
We just kind of came up with a plan, on how we could sort of scrap this thing together ourselves. We did do some crowdfunding to help us get over a few humps along the way. But, we just kind of like, we just put in a ton of sweat equity and a lot of love and worked together, and we got it off the ground. And when we did, we launched with the Appalachian Fernet, and the reactions were like really, really strong. And we just gained momentum and started releasing more and more things. But the important thing to realize is that while we were building everything out and we were rolling out the Fernet, we were always making the Rare Grain Rye Whiskey. We were making that before anything. From day one that the TTB let us start distilling, we started distilling and aging, because we knew we were gonna, it was gonna take 3, 4, 5 years before that the barrel could do the magic for the rye. And so we started making the rye, and then we were releasing the Amari, which is what we're known for. But we will be releasing the rye in probably this year. We'll start releasing it in 750s. Up till now, we've only, as you know, we have the small 200 ml bottles, just because it's very rare stuff. But yeah, we're looking forward to dropping the 750s.
Yeah, to me, it's your airplane bottle size. It's bigger than that, but that to me is like, this is what I want to drink on an airplane ride. If I have to be on a plane for 6 hours, I want that bottle of rye. Not that I wouldn't want the 750 mil. I mean, that sounds like I have to double my trip at that point, right?
Yeah.
What stands out to me is, all right, many distilleries start today and they're going to begin with clear spirits. They're going to make a vodka. They may start making a gin, things that they don't have to age, that they can start selling or tasting behind the bar. They can start a cocktail program with that. But you said, all right, this is what we can do because we make a great Fernet. We make the Amari. We're going to start with these things. And you kind of flip the script in a way, because many distilleries will do the Amaris, the Amaros, the aperitifs afterwards, more as the next ability to make cocktails. But you flipped the script at your distillery.
Well, we weren't going, hey, let's make an Amaro because it sounds cool or whatever. We're doing what our region is known for, and that's what's around. So that's our terroir. If you go out 20 minutes outside of downtown Asheville, you're going to step into the woods and you're going to find the plants that are in these Amari. And that's what our region has. So that's what we're bringing to the table. And it's just part of that old folk tradition that we're tapping into. So yeah, it's just what's around, like, hey, the shit's growing, put it in some booze,
I love that attitude. Maybe I'm going to start my own shit's growing, put it in the booze distillery. That's a great name for a distillery, So what year are we
it took
talking?
a little bit more time than that, but
What year are we talking with the inception of the distillery?
2018.
2018. So you're getting things going. 2017, but still, you're getting things going. You're laying down barrels of rye. You're making your Appalachian Fernet. When did the tasting room come immediately, or were you selling through bottles? How was that for you?
Yeah, we had a room. We had enough room to put in a small tasting room at the distillery, and we from day one. I think maybe we were only open on the weekends to start off with, and now we're open 7 days a week. We get a lot of people from all over, the country and the world travel through. They've heard about what we do and are interested to come and check it out. So it is more interesting than like your typical like let's go drink vodka and like you said clear spirits and your standard distillery outing. So we're there for the people who are interested in very distinct, interesting spirits. We're everything we do is very, very distinct. It's very terroir driven. It's very region driven. The rye. I had a guy who's somewhat of a whiskey expert, and he's just like, well, why are y'all doing rye whiskey? Everybody knows the South's all about corn and doesn't grow rye down there. And we're like, well, our rye is Seashore Black rye, and it's only found on the Carolina coast. There's only one place you can find it, and that's in North and South Carolina. So and then our corn on that is literally a single family saved this heirloom corn. Very almost it almost went extinct, and we know the one farmer that has this particular heirloom, and he's keeping it alive, and we're paying him to keep it alive for growing it for our whiskey.
Brewskits, beer grain dog bones, brewskits. Your dog will go wild. Brewskits, beer grain dog bones, a healthy alternative for your pup.
Brewskits are all natural and made in the USA. Visit brewskit.com. That's BREWSCUID.com.
We've teased this rye. We've talked about some of the other expressions. Where should we start tasting? Should we start with the rye, or should we start with which one would you go with?
I think I would start with the rye. That's going to be that'll be a good starting point.
Okay, we just recently had Drew Mavell from Buffalo Trace and Sazerac as a guest on the podcast. And one of the things he taught me was that before he goes and tastes, he drinks a little vodka, and he knows a little vodka to clear his palate. So in honor, this is the first time I've got a chance to thank and honor him. I'm doing vodka, where I did some vodka before, a little Ovo vodka, one of our guests. But all right, so you talk about, you talk a little bit about this rye, and what just knocked my socks off, what just blew me away is what you're talking about. This, you even say it on your label. It's a rare grain rye whiskey. You don't hold anything back to let people know what they're drinking is something you will probably never drink anywhere else in the world, and that makes this so unique.
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. I mean, in 2016, they rediscovered this grain. I mean, it was the Seashore Black was thought to be completely extinct, and they found that there were farmers using it as a cover and buffer crop down on the Carolina coast, and it just kept the seed for 100 years, 200 years, just been throwing it out there every season. I think you're going to find some very distinct flavor notes on that. But I'd like to hear what you think.
Well, all right. So what is the mash bill on this?
We don't really talk
Meander,
much.
be meander.
It's going to be mainly rye, and that's Seashore Black Rye. And then we have a smaller amount of corn, and that's the Connor family corn. That's that very rare um, you know, corn we get right over the mountain here in East Tennessee. Um,
You talk about
Also, a small amount, a very small 5% of that rye is malted.
the experience I have with this, and you talk about all these grains that are terroir driven. Only this is the experience. You talk about the Amaris, the Maros, the aperitifs, the things you're making, which within a 2 square mile radius or wherever you go, it's tasting the terroir. It's experiencing something unlike anywhere else. And even on the nose, it's this wonderful. It's almost there's a sweetness to it. There's an herb. You know what? It's herbaceous, to where you're almost getting the things like roots, and you can't just pinpoint one. I get cinnamon on the nose. I get there's even a little bit of a hint of like what I get is like a peach in a way, or an apricot in a way, but there's a stickiness to it, and you get I can't tell you what this specific grain would smell like. You would know because you mash it, right? You would know what that grain smells like while it's mashing, but it almost takes on a nose profile of anything unlike I've ever. It's one of those things where umami, in Japanese culture, the umami, that you almost, if this umami is a nose, this is what it is. It's undescribable. You can't put a pinpoint on that's exactly what it is. And that's what I get, at least out of the nose.
That Seashore Black Rye is like way. I think that it has a much sweeter and much nuttier profile as a grain than most of the standard ryes that we're used to. It's not as peppery or aggressive. So it does really lend itself to like a very, very distinct, sweeter. Yeah, it's mysterious might be a good word to use. But there you have it.
All right. So
if this grain has ever been used in a commercial distillery, it would have been 125 years ago. So, and it probably never was used in commercial distillation. So it's it's a flavor that's very, very special. Almost lost to time.
So what I'm drinking is 108 proof, which I would say even on the nose does not nose or drink at that high of a proof. With the nose that I was still enjoying before I took a sip, I almost got, if Coca-Cola took out all that sugar, what you would get is all that special recipe, maybe the barks or whatever they're imparting in there. I almost get like this Coca-Cola nose to it. And then on the mouth is, again, there's a smokiness to the mouth. There's a lingering. I'm curious now because the barrels, I remember, or at least I think I remember using 53-gallon barrels, right? So You're giving this a lot of time for this rye to move in and out.
Yeah.
And it picks up almost like a subtle barrel, almost to the point where I would say, you tell me it stayed in the barrel, what, 4, 5, 6 years?
Yeah. Yeah. We only bottle single barrel, and we only, some of them, it's funny, some barrels are ready in 3.5 years, and some aren't ready for 5 years. And so that's been an interesting process to learn about, is like how the barrels are working in our distillery, with the different weather changes that we've had here, which can actually be extreme. How one year we can have a lot more cold weather, and then the next year it's just very, very warm in the winters, and how that really affects what we do. That's been a really kind of interesting and fun experiment.
To what you're doing, that must be a pleasant learning curve to know that there's no secret science to this. There's no formula. And to what you said, look, if you know that you're coming into a really warm, hot summer, those barrels maybe you don't really climate control as much as you could. You could really air condition these barrels. No, it's whatever nature wants to do.
We don't even climate control our fermentation. This is like we do it the old fashioned way. This is old school traditional American whiskey making, open air fermentation. We cook it. We just cook the grains, and then we'll do a double pot distillation. So there's nothing fancy about what we do. It's very much connected to the old agricultural tradition, which is, that's Rhett's heart, that's where he comes from. And, that's his passion. And, it's been a very cool process.
Pardon the interruption. Thank you so much for listening to Fermented Adventure, the podcast. Could you do us a favor? Hit that follow button. It makes it easier for others to find us, and it helps us climb in the rankings. Take a screenshot of the podcast, post it, tag us, and let everyone know that you listen to the Fermented Adventure podcast. Now, back to our podcast. I feel like I'm being reintroduced to a long-lost friend, that it's been some time, and that's this rye. It's hello, how you been? And I really missed you. And why aren't we getting together more often? Because you're on the shelf right there. But I wanted to save this. I'm getting the cherry notes on this. It's almost like a slate. There's a sourness to it, but I get this creamy and this chocolatey note to it. What I will tell people, and I've mentioned this on the podcast in prior episodes, when especially we talk about different kind of ryes, because this is a standout rye. And here in Pennsylvania, we have Laura Fields, part of the Delaware Valley Fields Foundation, that's working to bring back Rosen rye. And there are other areas, I know Georgia, Michigan, they're working through their own process of a Rosen rye. And then you talk about, hey, have you tried the rye that Eda Rhyne Distilling Company is putting out? It's quite a little secret you got going on there, isn't it? Only those in the area know, or those that have had the benefit of stopping going through.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, this grain was thought to be lost until 2016. So it's like what we have released has been very small, just because it's taken us that much time to actually get the grain from these very small farmers, and then the next year be able to have them grow more for us. This is a very slow process. And then, so it's not like it's secret. It's just, it really is very, very rare. It's very rare, this grain. So we do what we can with what we can, and every year they produce more. And hopefully, now this endangered grain is now saved from extinction, and everyone can enjoy its beautiful flavor. There's some breweries that use it. But it's very, very regional. And again, that's what our vision is. We want, when you come to our neck of the woods in the mountains, you sit down at our tasting room, we want you to go, wow, like that is like I'm tasting these mountains right now. When I go to Italy, that's what I want, or Germany, I have some Crowder liquor, or, whatever. Like I want to taste the place I'm at and have that authentic experience. Um, so yeah, that's what we do.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I think 2024, in my experience right now, has been since the beginning, and I think it started with Gin de las Californias, where that's a gin from the Baja area of California. And they're taking what they have locally. And the conversation was very similar to the one we're having now, Chris, that what you're tasting is that region. And this theme it's coming up again and again with the wineries we're talking to, the distilleries we're talking to, that you're tasting the history, the flavor of the region, which I think where we are in craft right now, you're getting to promote and boast that. Whereas before, you're an artisan, you're a craft, you're making your craft. And it's not just, all right, let's go into another distillery. It's let's go into tasting the region, the community, from where you're bringing your water in, where you're bringing those barrels, where you're foraging for the roots, and what you're putting into all your spirits. That's so incredibly special. We're lucky for what you guys do. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It is special. That's again, Baja California. I mean, the plants there. They have so many wonderful. The aromatics there are just really mind blowing. I've made some stuff from, when I go out there, I like to, there's some plants that I love. Yerba Santa is one of them, and the sages, some beautiful sages. So I like to experiment with those flavors. But again, that's something that I just kind of love that about traveling, and that's what makes spirits so interesting to me, is like the great expressions of like a place, and like being able to go to those places and taste those flavors, and like like some of my best memories of different countries and towns I've been is sitting there and smelling spirits, and just that smell I can still remember. It gives you that feeling that, I don't know, it's
Well, I do, because I'm transported back into your tasting room the first time I tried this rye, and then with the other items. All right, so we have the Nocino, the Fernet, and the Amaro Oscura. Which one should we enjoy next?
I would. You said the Fernet Oscura, and what was the other one? The
Amaro Oscura and the Appalachian Fernet, and we have your rustic Nocino.
I would probably start with this Amaro Oscura.
Now, you make more than one Amaro, yes?
Yes, we have the Amaro Oscura, and then we have an Amaro Flora. And the Fernet is an Amaro. It's just a classification, a different classification. This Oscura is actually a Rabarbaro. That's a subcategory of Amaro, and that is rhubarb root based. That's kind of the major, flavor that's sticking out is the rhubarb root. But
what you do right now, I mean, you're blowing me away, because we'll have Amaros and we'll try different ones, and you've taken this and you've gone into a subcategory where I walk in and I can say, what is that? I've never had that flavor. What is that little nuance that's making this different. And while I can say I appreciate this, we've had a number of Amaros. We love some, but some of them tend to be too sugary, too sweet. And this is not. This is a wonderful novel of different experiences and flavors. How are you foraging, or where are you finding all these wonderful expressions that you're putting into this Amaro?
So, yeah, again, Western North Carolina has just got such a abundance of, plants, medicinal and edible plants. And so we will forage as much as is responsible, and then we will farm whatever else we need. We do have some exotics in these products, but that's to stay true to the tradition of what they are. So this is the Amaro Oscura is a Rhabarbaro. So this has to have rhubarb root, and we do not grow rhubarb root, and that does not grow wild in Western North Carolina. But what we do is we'll take that rhubarb root and then we'll put it with a lot of different regional plants. There's spruce tips and cherry bark and sumac, and we're not going to get into everything that's in there, but there's all these lovely just local plants that work with the rhubarb root to create a Rhabarbaro that's very distinctive. And yes, we definitely shy away from the sugar. Again, our tradition here in the mountains, this needs to be about our tradition as well. And we're a rustic people. This is a therapeutic land, but it's also a harsh land. So we back away from the sugar, and it's a little bit more rustic than a fine Italian Amaro.
What I appreciate from the approach that you're bringing to this is that if I want to make a cocktail, this becomes a highlighted flavor addition to where a lot of these things stand out, and you allow me to control the sweetness. So if I want to add some simple syrup or some honey or some different sweeteners to that, even natural things, it allows me to do so. But this already creates so much complexity to the environment of a cocktail. I have so much more fun playing with this. And that's what I appreciate as to what you've done with this, because the sugar, unfortunately, I think what it does, it coats your tongue, and it doesn't allow some of those flavors to penetrate to your taste buds, and you don't experience it all. Whereas your rye, it didn't drink at 108 proof. To me, this is 60. And it seems like, because I guess some of those, what you're adding and playing with here, it seems like it's a little higher proof to me. It just drinks higher. I don't know.
Right. There's some warming elements to the botanicals. So that's what you're picking up on. But yeah, I mean, I was recently in Sardinia and, hanging out and having some wine and food at a bar, and struck up a conversation with a guy beside me who turned out to be somewhat of a local legend and hero in the food and wine world. And I let him taste. I actually had this Amaro Oscura with me, a small bottle, and I let him have some to taste, and he was very pleased. He said, "Well, this is like what Amaro used to be like, not, it used to be medicine, and he was sort of going on about how the commercial Italian stuff has just become too sweet and commercialized." And so that was kind of a nice, it's just a good thing to be in Italy and have someone go, hey, this is actually what it used to be like. So that's cool.
I'm picturing travels with viewers like, it's very Hemingway-esque. It just seems like you make your way into a little establishment. You take on that local, aura, and next thing you know, you've got a whole crew around you. Just you're sharing stories and making stuff up too, and just sharing, some of the just wonderful things you're producing. It sounds like a wonderful time. When are you leading traveling? When are you starting a tourism business too?
Yeah, I will see, but I definitely like to get out into the world, and what I find is like, this tradition actually cuts across borders, and I've met people in Vietnam and Japan and South America, who we're part of a similar tradition. It's like an old folk way, and people, across the globe, they like people like to share a drink, and people are interested in new flavors and things that you can say, hey, look, I made this is we picked this out of my neck of the woods. Here's try it. And then they go, oh wow, well you need to check this out. This is what we do, boom, boom, boom. And that's just such a lovely thing to get to experience, and a connection we all have. We all have connection to the earth. In our different traditions. So it's just about tapping into that and respecting it and celebrating it.
Well, what I'm celebrating right now, it's been a couple of minutes since I took my last sip of this, and there's just wonderful bouquet in my mouth. It lingers so nicely, and it's almost like I'm okay with that because now I get such the after enjoyment of this. But which one should we go to? The Fernet or the Nocino?
I would go to the Fernet next.
Okay. Now we talked about you have two expressions of the Amaro,
Yes.
and you have this Fernet. Besides the rye, what are some of the other expressions that people can look forward to from the distillery?
Well, we have actually coming out soon. We are going to have a product called the Bitter Tooth, and that is an Italian red bitter aperitivo, much like a Campari or a Select. I feel like it's kind of like you have Select on this side, you have Campari on this side, and then ours is in the middle. Again, going with a classic. Italian aperitivo, but, including our local plants and terroir to make it a more distinctive. And then we have a product called Pills that we will be releasing, and that is a 100% foraged chanterelle mushroom liqueur. And we've been making that in small batches for many years because as we're out, foraging, then, here we have a lot of mushrooms. So we'll always collect these mushrooms. And, one year I was just messing around with them and I was just like, I wonder what it would be like to try to make a liqueur out of these. And I was kind of totally blown away with how the mushrooms reacted with the spirits. It's a taste that you are not expecting to come from a mushroom. And so I'm very excited to get that out and have people taste it because as far as I know, it would be the only chanterelle mushroom liqueur on the planet. So And, you know,
Okay,
we're
what's the date of release for that? Well, actually, don't
so
tell me off air because I want to make sure I beat everybody to the door. So when everybody's lining up, I want to make sure I don't miss a bottle.
yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a release date for it right now because we are just, you know, we're still dealing with some supply chain issues from COVID, and you know, it's just kind of going back and forth with some people about some stuff, and the juice is ready to go, but you know, we got to get bottles, and you know, there's a bunch of, you know, stuff that is not you know, as romantic and enjoyable about the distilling process, you
I'll
know.
come down. I'll clean the distillery. I'll, clean out the fermentation tanks. I'll bring my own bottle. That's all. I'm going to work for just you can send me home with the 200, of your chanterelle mushroom spirit. This is, it's like shifting gears with these two Amaris that you have produced. This is peppery, minty. I'm curious, is there a juniper or something juniper-like in this? Are you allowed to tell me? You don't have to tell me if you can't tell me. You're shaking your head
There's juniper like.
non-committally.
There's definitely juniper like in there. There is a lot of medicinals in that. There's over 30 medicinals. I'm not going to get into how many, but
Now, I'm not asking to give away your secret, but here's what I also know. What you do and I was thinking as we were talking back in, let's say, colonial days or, through the discovery of the country as people were out and about, people would go and bring back things from different parts of the country. Like, I think Thomas Jefferson, he would plant things, you get plants and, you'd plant these things to see how they would react and grow in agriculture. And I think learning the experience is, I'm sure, in a lot of ways, you almost catalog what is growing in your area. You know exactly where it is. You make sure you're a caretaker for it. So like we talked about with the rye, that rare grain, that now not only what you're able to do is you're able to identify and make sure it stays there, but it can flourish so it can create these wonderful spirits. Is that a part of, what you see your mindset as in a way, a botanist, I guess?
yeah, yes, it's again, this is a tradition, a deep standing tradition here. It comes, the native Cherokee people here were using these plants way before anyone else got here. And then, they shared their knowledge, and that knowledge has been passed down. It is very esoteric. There are a lot of kind of esoteric traditions. But yes, I think that it's more about building a relationship with the plants and being able to, like right now, certain plants are blossoming, and I found a very rare plant in the woods earlier this week. It's called golden seal. It's a very powerful medicinal plant. We don't use it because we're not going to use any endangered species in the Amaro, but like it's so nice to have a relationship with that plant and be able to say, hey, like, all right, there you are, you're coming out, and protect it and know that that's a endangered plant, and then we're gonna make sure it's got we're not going to step on it, or make sure it's got lots of leaf cover, and just kind of help it along through, and just acknowledge, and give it respect. So
Our discussion takes on a level of speciality to me because we're in and around that Earth Day experience. And, understanding that it's not just about what the land can give to us, what the land can provide. If I can make these great spirits, it's saying, what can I provide the land to continue to flourish and provide that experience? I'm sure as you're walking around and you're looking for something that you know you're looking for, look at you. Where'd you come from, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like kind of as we've grown apart from nature and our plant friends, there's a reason why a lot of our forests are being taken over by invasive species, and that's because there's no stewardship from people anymore, because people are just going there for recreation and not stewardship, and it's kind of unfortunate. But we all, that's the thing. It's like I would tell everybody, yeah, go out into the woods and learn about plants and learn what's in your area. And then going back to your idea of like, yeah, just pick some stuff and make your own booze. And it's a great way to learn about plants and build a relationship with them. And I think that's what's lacking the most is people having an intimate relationship, because when you do have a relationship with nature, then it becomes more important to you, and it's less likely that you'll abuse it.
Your method, do you take those herbs, those roots, those plants, do you steep each one individually, or do you bring them together? How do you go about producing, or is that another secret you don't want anybody to know?
Well, let's just say, there's proprietary methods on how to extract different compounds from different plants, and we do multiple macerations and different processes, but yeah, I that's also the fun of it. There's always been a debate, like, oh, like, should it be secret? Should it not be secret? And a lot of new producers like to be very transparent about everything, but for me, I like to have a little secrecy. That was one of the things that piqued my interest when I started learning about these spirits, is like kind of how secretive the methods were, and I just love that, especially in a day and age where you can look up how to do anything and everything. To have something that's just mysterious and unknown is, I think, kind of fun and special.
Unfortunately, we do this as audio, not video, but watching your face and the smile that came to your face when I asked you about your methods, it was almost as if, I know the combination and you're not getting it. This is I feel like this is like a Lebowski-esque conversation. It's like, it's really chill, but the magic of our conversation is what you don't say by what you do say. So I appreciate that.
The dude abides, man.
All right. So Nocino, for those that aren't familiar with Nocino, what is it that we're enjoying now?
So Nocino is a traditional black walnut liqueur. Various, there's a lot of different stories about how it originated. Some very unique, mystical stories for the most part. But yeah, it's a traditional black walnut liqueur, and that's made from very young black walnuts. So we will go out, in spring, early summer. Again, it just depends on the trees are going to tell us when we're going to do it. And we're going to harvest the very small, young black walnuts. And then we will take that and we will, basically cut them up and start aging them, and we'll age them for an entire year with proprietary spices. And yeah, it's really lovely. Again, that one might be the sweetest one that we create, but it's also part of the tradition, and it's meant to be enjoyed like after a meal or with dessert. And so we're wanting to be distinct, but we also want to like for it has its own place, so we want to honor that place.
It's like you said, I think you finished with this. All right, it's an after dinner little aperitif, but still in a way, I can add this to, let's say, a bourbon as if I'm making an old fashioned. This replaces, to me, this is that bitterness. I don't have to do bitters. I could just add this. I can add a little bit of, I also add a little bit of walnut bitters if I want to up that. I can do a lot of stuff. That's where, and even our experience in your tasting room and your cocktail program, you get to make these cocktails with what you're producing that create cocktails unlike anything you're going to ever experience anywhere else because of these expressions you're producing. It's delightful. This is why if you're in Asheville, don't just go. There's like, you got so much history there. You've got so much to experience. As you talked about, you get to the outdoors. But Asheville's such a delightful town, and a great place. But stopping by, you got that great barbecue place right around the corner from you. Great barbecue, great distilled spirits as to what Eda Rhyne is making. When did it hit you, Chris, or were there aha moments for you to say, you know what, that conversation I had with our farmer, bringing in some backers or people that we wanted to partner with? When did it hit you that you were on your way to, you were on the right track?
I think it was really that first moment I just discussed earlier, when out of the blue, Rhett was, again, going into like what his vision was about whiskey making, because, I had very strong opinions on that too, because I learned how to make whiskey in the woods. And so and for him to just come out of nowhere and just say, and maybe we could make a Fernet. I mean, at that moment, I just knew that this was something that we had to pursue, and this was really the guy. Rhett is such a talented, very very intelligent, very caring. So I just knew right away that this had to happen, and that I would fight for it to happen as much as I could. And we're still fighting. We're fighting to get into more states, and and fighting to get into more stores, and we're fighting to have people just ask about our spirits, and inquire with their local, retail shops and bars, and, to get it out there, and, share our part of the world, and our love that we put into this. And hopefully have as many people enjoy it as possible, because at the end of the day, that's why we do it, is we want people to have an enjoyable, delicious, authentic experience with our spirits.
And how do people, I mean, you said you're trying to work on getting into different states. How do people get a hold of your products if they want to order, or if they want to look for them on the shelves? Do you have an idea where you're at?
So you can check out edarhyne.com. We've teamed up with some people to get some of our products online, so you can just tap in and go there. You can also, we have a list of states that we're available in. We don't have, we're trying to compile. It's kind of somewhat of a bureaucratic issue to like get every single place that has it. But if you go to our website, you can see, all right, we're legal in Tennessee. All right, cool. So then you could just go to your local retailer and just ask if they have it and if they could get it. Most of our distribution partners are very well known in the state, and they handle a lot of major brands, and so that it should be available. If you see on our website that it's available in your state, you should be able to get it. And we will have information on who the distributor is. So you could just straight up go in and say, hey, I'm Liberate. If you're in, Atlanta, I'm looking for, Eda Rhyne Fernet, the Liberator carries it, so they can look, in their catalog.
You're producing the rye whiskey. Are there additional whiskeys you're working on or have thought about doing?
Yeah, we've thought about doing some stuff, and right now, what we're mainly focusing on is doing different barrel experimentation. So we're continually making the rare grain rye. The thing about moving into other whiskeys is like we just have to have those regional grains available, and we're working on that, and that just takes some experimentation. But so we do a lot of interesting, cool barrel expressions, and we just do very small runs that are only available at the tasting room. So we have, rye that's been aged in, 100-year-old rum barrel, or we make one that it has been finished in our Nocino barrels, which is really, really good. That might be my favorite thing that we do. I mean, it is really special. But different wines, different brandies. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing with the whiskey program, is just trying to find really fun, delicious expressions and do very small releases. So, if you can get your hands on them, like you have, it's like if you get your hands on one, you better keep it close.
See, here's what you're really saying. Look, there's so much to explore. You're an explorer, man. You go out in the world, you bring back things, you put them together, you share the history. I mean, the stories and things, you just touched on it just on the surface. What you're producing, those experimental things, you're just touching on it on the surface. And I go back to the fact that you're a craftsman. And I'm sure you have a team of people that are working side by side with you to help to just allow the masses, the consumers, to enjoy what you're doing. But you're lucky if you're in Asheville or anywhere near a short drive, you're getting to experience these things quite often. If you're not, put it on your bucket list, put it on your to-do list to get to Eda Rhyne Distilling Company. Chris, selfishly, this is why we do Fermented Adventure, because we get to learn and enjoy company such as yours. And you rekindle a fire, a spirit, I think, for me, in a way to want to explore more of the kinds of things that you're doing, if not starting to buy property in Asheville so we have a place to go all the time. Is there anything we haven't talked about today on the podcast? Anything you want our listeners to know more about you or Eda Rhyne Distilling Company?
No, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you having me on, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
Remember, I'll work for, I'll clean. I'm humble. I'll get down on my hands and knees and scrub. If you're doing mushroom liqueur or some sort of spirit, I'm there. Just to be able to enjoy your company and your spirits, that would be a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And yeah, when those other things come out, maybe we'll get back on, and I'd like to get your opinion on those new bottlings.
I would love it. And, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of some people I'd love to bring on as a panel to enjoy them together. People that have much more experience and expertises than I, that I think would really would really just be so happy to enjoy your company and your spirits. And, it's almost like, that round table of distillers in a way of, I could just sit back and listen and be a fly on the wall while, really talented people talk. And I'll just step away and I'll be comic relief here and there. But I'm grateful that you're a friend of Fermented Adventure. Can't wait to see you and Eda Rhyne and get back down to enjoy what you're producing. And really, really appreciate the time you took with us today.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.